Time to get in the fair spirit. The Iowa State Fair starts in less than 6 weeks. We'll talk about what's new and exciting with Fair CEO Jeremy Parsons on this edition of Iowa Press.
Funding for Iowa Press was provided by Friends, the Iowa PBS Foundation.
The Bob and Doreen Sheppard family, proud supporters of educational programming seen only on Iowa PBS.
Banking in Iowa goes beyond transactions. Banks work to help people and small businesses succeed. And Iowa banks are committed to building confident banking relationships. Iowa Banks, your partner through it all.
For decades, Iowa Press has brought you political leaders and newsmakers from across Iowa and beyond, celebrating more than 50 years on statewide Iowa PBS. This is the Friday, July 3rd edition of Iowa Press. Here is Kay Henderson.
The very first Iowa State Fair was held in Fairfield in 1854. The fair moved to Des Moines in 1886. In 1987, the 454-acre complex that is the Iowa State Fairgrounds in Des Moines was added to the National Register of Historic Places. And in August, the 2026 Iowa State Fair will commence. What sort of history will be made? Our guest today is here to brief us on that. Jeremy Parsons is CEO and manager of the Iowa State Fair. He worked as a seasonal employee at the fair in his youth. He spent more than a decade managing the Clay County Fair in Spencer before joining the Iowa State Fair in 2023. Welcome back to Iowa Press.
Hey, well, it's good to be here and talk all things fair.
Exactly. Joining our conversation is Linh Ta. She's a reporter for Axios Des Moines.
It's America's 250th birthday. What are you doing at the Iowa State Fair this year to make it special?
You know, I tell a lot of people I think this year you're going to see a fair within a fair. And what we mean by that is it's all your Iowa State Fair favorites, all those traditional things. But at the same time, we just added an extra layer, really focusing on America 250. And so, for example, up by Pioneer Hall, you're going to see a display of 250 American flags, each flag representing a different year of our country. And so you've got exhibits like that. You've got a special exhibit that the fair is working on with the State Historical Society and Living History Farms, kind of on Iowa's role in the American Revolution, which may sound odd because we weren't a state, but you'll have to come find out about that. But just a lot of extra red, white, and blue all over the grounds.
Can we expect any red, white, and blue food?
Definitely. Our new food competition, of course, is coming up next week, and one of the categories this year is best red, white, and blue food, but also competitions like best red, white, and blue vegetables in the ag building. So,
what about, I understand there's a display to be put up that will show fairgoers what Iowa looked like in 1776?
That's part of that exhibit that I mentioned. That really is a combination of several agencies getting together. You know, when you think about it, obviously Iowa was not the site of
prairie grass.
Prairie grass, yeah. We were not battlefield site, but yet also some ties to the Revolution today. When you really look at Iowa, so many counties and cities are named after Revolutionary War heroes that people may not be expecting, and so we hope to educate you on that in that exhibit. That'll be underneath the grandstand this year at the fair, kind of there on the Grand Concourse. So.
Will there be a quiz?
There will be a quiz as well. There'll be lots of questions about America that you'll be able to answer, and really a lot of fun interactive components that we hope Iowans will enjoy to come to the fair, not only to have a good time, but also an educational time.
Last fall, you were in Washington, D.C. at the Smithsonian, and the Smithsonian curated an exhibit where they had items and artifacts from state fairs around the country. And sort of the center of that was the butter cow. In a glass case with lovely lighting. And when you came back, you said, we have to up our game in terms of exhibits, display, and lighting. What might we see at the fair as a result of your experience?
Yeah, you know, when you're at the Smithsonian and seeing the beautiful quilts and the butter cow and canned goods in like museum quality lighting and display fixtures, you think, wow, maybe we could do something different than paper plates. And so what we're doing this year, though, is kind of storing and cataloging all those ideas as we plan for America 250, because coming down the road rapidly in 2029 is a huge celebration of our own. That will be the 175th anniversary of the Iowa State Fair. And so stay tuned for some of those changes to come down the road. But yeah, seeing a butter cow in the round and full glass, museum quality lighting with benches around it for you to sit and stare and ponder at Sarah Pratt's great work. Some things we need to think about for sure.
You were in Washington, D.C. a few days ago for the State Fair exhibition. If Iowans are watching this, they're probably not in D.C. What are they missing at the Iowa exhibit on the mall?
Yeah, the Great American State Fair, of course, is going through July 10th, and so every state has a pavilion there, and Iowa is no different. And so our exhibit there is called Shine on Iowa, and it's really just an overview of our state. And so if you don't make it to D.C. for the Great American State Fair, you'll be able to see it at the Iowa State Fair. So it'll be the centerpiece exhibit in the Agriculture Building. So right when you walk in, you'll be able to see what everyone across the country has been seeing out there.
Across the fairgrounds, you've been working on improving infrastructure, adding different amenities. What are some of the new things that people can expect this year and into the future?
Well, you know, really two prongs to that question, really, Lynn. The first being we really continue the focus on what we call creature comforts at the Iowa State Fair. I told someone the other day, I think my greatest accomplishment as fair CEO is that we own more benches and picnic tables and shade structures than we did when I first arrived. So I feel like if you're going to come to the fair, you need to be comfortable. And so we've renovated some restrooms to help toward that goal in the Varied Industries building and up in the campgrounds. We've added a new shaded seating area next to the cookie building. So lots of just kind of those guest service things. Also, a huge project going on right now is another entrance to the fair off of University Avenue, which will provide a third way for people to get into our north parking lots, which again should get you in the parking lot quicker than getting you in the fair quicker. So that's a key piece. The other piece is really this multi-year project, which has been going on since 2023, and that's the renovation of our livestock barns. And so when you come to the fair this year, fully restored, renovated horse barn, a $13 million 2-year project that really makes it a stunning facility for our equine exhibitors, whether they're 4-H, FFA, or open class, and also allowing us to use it throughout the rest of the year.
What are some of the other projects that you guys are looking at infrastructure-wise for these next, 5 or upcoming years? Yeah,
as I mentioned, 2029 is a big year for us. Yeah. So some things we're looking forward to. Obviously, we'll have the barn renovation project completed by then. We just announced basically the 3-year renovation of our swine barn, which will be the largest project in fair history as far as a restoration and renovation project. And so that will be completed in time for the 28 fair. But then our attention really is also turning to ag education. Iowa's an agricultural state, but not everybody knows where their food comes from, even here in Iowa. And so we will be expanding and constructing a new facility kind of on the north edge of the grounds, close to the Little Hands on the Farm and the Animal Learning Center, really to teach Iowans more about agriculture, particularly soil, water, and crops, since the Animal Learning Center focuses more really on livestock production.
Security is a major part of operations at the Iowa State Fair, especially as you guys keep breaking different attendance records. Can you talk a little bit about, what may be new this year in terms of security, and if you're using, any unique technology like drones or different cameras? Yeah,
that's a great question. We feel very strongly about safety and security at the Iowa State Fair because we know as a family event, if you or your family, if you don't feel safe at the Iowa State Fair, you're not going to go. And so we really want security to be top of our mind so it's not top of your mind. And so specifically to what you asked, drones will be utilized again this year at the fair. We started using that technology a couple years ago. We'll also have magnetometers at the gates as well to check for weapons coming onto the fairgrounds. Those are being expanded this year with a little different technology that hopefully will allow you to get into the fair faster. We had some times last year where those lines got really long. Obviously, we want everybody to be safe and secure, but there's new technology that will allow us to move people through those gates faster.
Last year, you changed a policy and let people bring food into the fairgrounds. When you evaluate how that went, what did you learn?
You know, we learned fairgoers really appreciated it, I think, more than anything. When you look at today's world, obviously, affordability and things like the economy are top of mind. You guys interview politicians all the time on this show. I know that's something that you guys talk about, and it's something we think about as well. Again, we want all Iowans to feel welcome at the Iowa State Fair, so affordability is key. And so we've really held the line. We've not increased admission at the fair since 2023. The price to get into the fair. And so we know we can provide a lot of things for you to do at the fair for free, but obviously everybody wants to enjoy that fair food as well. And so what we discovered last year, Kay, when we allowed people to bring in their own food and beverages, it really didn't affect anything at all. Fairgoers still enjoyed their fair food, but I think they also enjoyed knowing that they could bring in some snacks or maybe some bottled water of their own. And so really, it was the right thing to do, and still continues to be the right thing. That when you come to the Iowa State Fair, outside of that gate admission, you could spend all day and really not spend another dime if you didn't want to.
So you didn't hear from vendors who said sales were down?
No, we did not hear any of that from vendors. Again, I think obviously the vendors are there to serve our fairgoers and also generate their own revenue and income, and so. But at the same time, I think they understood that, allowing more people to come to the fair, the saying of something is better than nothing. Maybe there's that family that the fair is a stretch for them from an affordability standpoint, but they can maybe pack their own lunch, but then enjoy an ice cream cone or something like that down the road. And so we're excited to be able to offer that opportunity.
What are you seeing in food trends, and how does the weather influence that?
Yeah, weather influences everything at the Iowa State Fair. Obviously, if it's a really hot day, there's going to be lots of liquids flowing on the fairgrounds. But if it's a cool morning, everybody's going to sit down for breakfast. And so really what we're seeing trends, it's kind of interesting. You're seeing people, I think, really looking at more, I think in general, people today are more sophisticated about their food. What am I eating? Natural, all those types of things. And so I think you're seeing a wide variety of that at the fair. This year we'll be introducing bison burgers at the fair as a new food item, for example. And so you're seeing some traditional things maybe with some twists. But at the same time, I think there's those people that count calories all year long, except when they come to the fair. And it's a one-day cheat. I tell people the calories don't count because you can walk. You're walking between the food stands. You're not just sitting there having it all brought to you. So I think our vendors are usually pretty cognizant. I think this year you'll see a lot of dirty sodas at the fair. That seems to be a popular drink in today's world. And so our food vendors always try to keep up to date on those trends.
We talked a little bit about families' concerns over affordability. How does that influence attendance at the fair and what they do end up purchasing?
Really, when you look at the fair, it's kind of an interesting thing. When you look at high gas prices, for example, historically in the fair industry, higher gas prices have been okay for the Iowa State Fair and other fairs because people don't travel as far for vacations. It's more of a staycation experience. And so because of that, we always feel like we're pretty economy-proofed, for lack of better words, from that way. I think, though, when fairgoers come to the fair, again, for many people, it's a vacation, and so they've maybe budgeted for that type of experience. And again, I think when you look at what we have planned this year at the Iowa State Fair, you pay that gate admission, which if you purchase in advance is only $11 for adults. But you purchase that advance admission, that's going to get you all day with livestock shows. I mentioned the flag exhibit, the Special America 250 things, a lumberjack show. I mean, so many things are crammed into that fairgrounds, 4-H projects that you can really spend a day and not spend an extra additional dime.
Yeah. And kind of still on the topic of the economy a little bit, let's talk about the workforce. Are there any challenges that you guys are facing with hiring people, and are vendors facing any challenges with getting labor?
You know, when you look at the Iowa State Fair, you start with our full-time team of about 80 employees, and this time of year, our payroll's up closer to 250, and then we're going to bounce up to 1,500 during the fair to really put the fair on. And so for us this year, we're very fortunate to have a return rate. Many people love working at the fair, and it becomes their summer job. Maybe like me, they started back when they were in high school, you know, working at the Iowa State Fair. Maybe it's a job they've picked up since they've retired. But this year we created a new hiring center to kind of standardize and streamline that hiring process at the fair. What we're also helpful for is that will give us some data down the road on really what our returning workforce looks like, since we have it all kind of consolidated in one place.
What was your job at the fair?
Well, I started as a 16-year-old in the special events department, so that is the free entertainment side of the fair. But over the years there, I edited press releases, working with Kathy Swift, who is a longtime marketing director who I know Kay knew well, and I also was once Rosetta in the Iowa State Fair parade, so I've done a lot of different things at the Iowa State Fair.
And Rosetta is the
mascot, yes, the official ribbon mascot of the Iowa State Fair. So I know what it's like in 100-degree heat to wear that costume, waving to people at the Iowa State Fair parade route, and it was an experience I did once, but I can say I did it at least.
Many Americans are doing something for the very first time. They're buying World Cup tickets, and some of them are being the subject of fraud. I mean, they aren't being able to get their tickets. You have grandstand performances every night of the fair, and people are paying some top ticket, big dollar amounts for those performances. What steps has the fair taken to help, perhaps, hopefully, reduce fraud?
Well, I think the first thing is if you ever get on a website and someone is charging you more than $125 for an Iowa State Fair grandstand ticket, you are not buying it from the Iowa State Fair. You are purchasing it from a third-party individual, whether that's StubHub or any of those types of groups. So that's the main thing to know. We hear that a lot. You know, well, I paid $400 for these tickets. Well, we apologize, but you didn't buy them from us, and therefore there's not a lot we can do. But there are some things we have done. One of those is what's called delayed delivery, which is pretty common in the event world, where if you buy a ticket today, for example, to an Iowa State Fair grandstand concert, you actually won't get that ticket emailed to you until 2 or 3 days before. Because that prevents, obviously, the chance for somebody to resell it, because they physically don't have that ticket to give to you until right before. And so that's one of the things we've done. Also, just a lot of updates with software technology. Our ticketing partner, eTix, you know, again, all these companies are on the cutting edge of trying to prevent that fraud. And I guess the other thing I want to say, too, is we often, you know, want to blame the scalpers. You know, we think of these people in apartment buildings in New York City that are just, you know, making their living doing this. And they may be your neighbors. You know, anybody can purchase tickets online and resell them. And so sometimes, you know, that's disappointing as well, where you're like, you know, if you weren't going to go to that show, you should have not purchased those tickets to let somebody else purchase them at the real rate instead of the inflated rate. But I guess that's also capitalism and free market at work. So.
Can you talk a little bit about the demographics of who's going to the Iowa State Fair? And I'm curious if, you know, there's been any trends or changes over the years.
You know, we're able to do a lot of statistical analysis. That's a hard word to say. I shouldn't say it on TV, I guess. But really of who's attending the fair through a lot of different survey opportunities. And so we know the average fairgoer is a 38.6-year-old female. That's kind of the average. The attendance skews more on the female side. But what we're really excited about is that number has come down. It's become younger. And so we're really excited about that. We know the fair is a great place for grandparents to take their grandchildren and families go, but we also know we need to hook those people at a young age, and so we're really excited to see that point of age kind of drop a little bit as our crowd becomes younger. You know, we as we know in the state of Iowa, the rural population, you know, remains flat or continues to decline, yet the population of the Des Moines metro area, the Golden Circle, continues to increase. And so when we look at that from a fair perspective, while we are the Iowa State Fair, we know that roughly 65 to 70% of our attendees come from that golden circle. And so as that population increases, if that percentage stays the same, then we have to forecast in the future of what does a larger Iowa State Fair look like. Our all-time attendance record was set a couple years ago at 1.18 million. If the population of the Des Moines Metro continues to increase, if we continue to put on a quality event, a quality fair, what does a fair of 1.25 million people look like into the future? And so those are some things we have to think about. Part of the reason for the new entrance off a university, for example, just trying to be prepared, hopefully, for larger crowds in the future.
Yeah.
Do you have to expand the fairgrounds?
That's a great question. We're pretty well landlocked, and I think there's a limit of what people are willing to walk and see in a day, but there are some underutilized areas on the fairgrounds that I think we can develop. One of our goals really the last couple of years is not expansion of the fairgrounds, but moving around what's happening. If you've been to the Iowa State Fair, for a few years, when the craft beer tent was moved down in the southwest corner by the 4-H building, everyone thought, what? That's out in the middle of nowhere. And yet now we've filled it in with food vendors and free entertainment, and that's become a destination that has stretched people that way. And then we've done a lot of work up on the hill, for example, into the campgrounds, up by Grandfather's Barn. A food and beverage establishment was placed up there. Same way, it's stretching people out. And so we think we've got lots of room for those extra people, but we're going to need to be more strategic in how we move them around.
I'm so curious because I had read somewhere, nationally that Latino and Hispanic families had been increasingly going to different state fairs, county fairs, and have been making up a growing number of demographics. I'm just curious if you guys are experiencing that as well at the Iowa State Fair.
We are experiencing that, seeing a lot of younger Latino families come and enjoy the fair, and it's changed our programming as well. The first Sunday of the fair, this will be the third year we've done the Charros performances, which are the beautiful horseback riding presentation drill teams, for lack of better words. And so it really is, again, as we want to be the fair for all Iowas, I've said, regardless of affordability, regardless of culture, we want to make sure everybody can come to the Iowa State Fair and have a good time.
Yeah. So we've talked about different changes to infrastructure, the amenities that you'll be doing, but how do you navigate between, those hardcore fair goers that love their traditions, but also making updates and modernizing things at the Iowa State Fair?
You really have just summarized the most difficult part of my job. It's that balancing act of those people that don't want you to move anything. I know where to go to get my corn dog and where to get my mop. I know where to sit to see this concert, as opposed to the person who says, if it's the same as last year, I'm not going to go back. And so for us, it's really navigating that middle ground, that taking those fair traditions, bolstering them in some cases, but maybe tweaking them a little bit as society evolves, but then also keeping that introduction. I would say 80-20 is a rough principle for us, 80% the same, 20% new in some capacity. And obviously, we've been able to do it for almost 175 years, so we'll keep working on that formula.
Well, speaking of something old, the cow chip throwing contest has been one of the attractive contests that people participate in, but the records were set in the last century. I'm wondering what you see happening in that competition and others. What percentage of fairgoers just go to be in a competition? That's one of the unique things about the Iowa State Fair. Some of those competitions you have to enter in advance. Others you have to enter there, on the spot. That's one of them. Husband calling is another one. Maybe it's the mullet contest or Mr. Legs, a lot of different competitions like that. For us, are still seeing steady growth in those competitions. Now, I would say maybe it's more of a reflection that our society needs to exercise more if they can't throw the cow chip as far as they used to. That'll be a challenge to the media, especially in that competition. Let's work out some before you do that. But that's just one of the unique things about the fair, that you can come and not even expecting to be part of a competition, enter something. This year, for example, we've had checkers and chess and backgammon competitions. This year we add euchre, for example, at the fair. So always looking to evolve and change.
You have 8 hours on a random weekday at the Iowa State Fair.
Ooh.
What is your ideal day? What are you doing morning to night?
That is a great question. I always tell people, even if you only have one place or an hour to spend at the fair, start in the ag building. It really is, I feel like, encapsulates the entire fair and really our state. It's the butter cow, it's some vendors, it's fruits and vegetables. It really encapsulates everything about Iowa. I would spend some time watching some of the free entertainment. You know, throughout the day at the Iowa State Fair, all the entertainment you see are local entertainers. They're dance troupes, maybe a local small town band, and we give them the chance to showcase on Iowa's largest stage. So I'd enjoy that, and then I would be really strategic about eating, making sure I have planned my proper day to get through those new foods, which we'll be announcing on July 14th, or also the returning favorites. And always time in the livestock area and the 4-H building. You know, ultimately, we're a celebration of Iowa agriculture, but more than that, we're a huge youth development event. And so to really see what the future of our state is about, you need to go watch those 4-H and FFA kids show their livestock, do their educational presentations in the 4-H building, because that really is what the Iowa State Fair is all about.
Well, thank you for being here to talk about the upcoming Iowa State Fair and what may be here in the future.
Thank you. It's August 13th through the 23rd. Don't miss it. Don't even be late.
Oh, there we go. He's going to sing, folks. You may watch other episodes of Iowa Press at iowapbs.org for everyone here at Iowa PBS. Thanks for watching today.
Funding for Iowa Press was provided by Friends, the Iowa PBS Foundation.
The Bob and Doreen Sheppard family, proud supporters of educational programming seen only on Iowa PBS.
Banking in Iowa goes beyond transactions. Banks work to help people and small businesses succeed. And Iowa banks are committed to building confident banking relationships. Iowa Banks, your partner through it all.